Nobody really warns you that grief has a way of showing you who is actually still standing beside you. Jennifer died on a Tuesday, pancreatic cancer. 6 weeks passed between the diagnosis and the funeral. That kind of speed is cruel in a way people do not understand until they live through it. It is too short to say everything, but it is long enough to watch the person you love become weaker every day, until she looks like someone the illness borrowed and slowly erased. She was 53. She still had a Pinterest board saved under the name, "When we finally go to Italy." We never made it to Italy. I am telling you this first because you need to understand the emptiness I was left with. It was not just an empty chair at the table. It was not a few quiet evenings or a weekend with nothing planned. It was a hole right through the middle of my life. Jennifer and I had been married for 26 years. She laughed at jokes that were honestly not worth laughing at. She left socks on the bathroom floor, and somehow I never found it annoying. She made coffee so strong it felt like it could stand up by itself. When the microwave beeped, she would say, "You're welcome," like she had personally done all the work. She was the structure of my normal life. And when she was gone, the house was still there. The furniture was still there. The roof was still over my head. But the meaning had been taken out of all of it. What shocked me most was not the grief. I expected grief. I expected the nights, the silence, the way I would still turn my head to tell her something before remembering she was not there. What I did not expect was what my family did after she died. Nothing, not something small. Not a little less than I hoped. Nothing in a way that was almost impressive. So let me introduce everyone because this story has a cast. Hannah is my older sister. She was 61 then. She lived about 40 minutes away in the same suburb she had lived in since the 90s. She also believed there was only one correct way to load a dishwasher, and everyone else was apparently doing it wrong. Rachel is my younger sister. She was 55. She lived 2 hours away, and she was always busy. Always planning to call soon. Always almost getting around to it. Brooke is my daughter. She was 28 when Jennifer died. She lived 45 minutes from me with her husband, Morgan, and their 2 kids. Austin is my son. He was 26, single, and lived in the same city as me, 12 minutes from my front door. That was the family. 4 people close enough to reach me without much effort. 2 of them were my own children. When Jennifer died, they all came to the funeral. Of course they did. Funerals are clear. There is a date, a place, black clothes, food, and permission to cry in public. People usually show up for that. They hugged me. Hannah held my hand and said, "James, if you need anything at all, call us." I nodded, and I believed her. I did not know yet that anything at all had limits nobody had explained to me. The first month after the funeral, I cooked. That was how I handled it. Jennifer had always been the cook in our house. After she was gone, I found out I was not bad at it. More than that, I found out that standing over a stove gave my mind somewhere to go. Something needed watching. Something needed stirring. Something could still be fixed before it burned. So I made pot roast, lasagna, stuffed peppers like the ones Jennifer used to make. I packed leftovers into containers and started inviting people over. I called Hannah and told her I had made pot roast and she should come Sunday. She came. Brooke, Morgan, and the kids came too. Rachel even drove in, which felt like an effort. Austin showed up 20 minutes late with a 6-pack, ate 3 plates, and said, "Dad, this is actually really good." That first Sunday, the house felt alive again. The kids ran through the rooms. Hannah and Rachel argued about something that had happened decades earlier. Brooke showed me pictures of the grandkids playing in sprinklers. Morgan loaded the dishwasher in a way Hannah considered a personal attack. And I stood there in Jennifer's kitchen, in Jennifer's house, with my family around me, and I thought, maybe we were going to survive this together. I was wrong. I just did not know it yet. The Sunday dinners continued for a while. I kept cooking. I kept calling, then little by little they stopped coming. Not all at once. That would have been easier to understand. It would have given me something definite to point at. Instead, it faded slowly. Hannah came maybe 6 Sundays before she started having other plans. Rachel's visits became less common, then rare, then they stopped. Brooke and Morgan were always overwhelmed with the kids, the schedules, and the busy life young families build around themselves, and Austin hurt the most. Because Austin lived 12 minutes away. 12 minutes. I know because one day I drove it just to check. Not because I needed to go there. I just wanted to make sure I was not being unfair in my own head. It was 12 minutes without traffic. About 3 months, he stopped coming too. One Sunday in November, about 4 months after Jennifer had died, I called him. He did not answer. I left a message. Hey, it's Dad. I made chili. Way too much of it. Come by if you feel like it. 2 hours later, he texted back. Can't tonight, sorry. Rain check? That rain check never happened. I want to be careful with the timeline because it matters. I'm not talking about years later, when everyone had already adjusted and life had moved on. I'm talking about the first year after my wife of 26 years died. The first year when the sympathy cards still sat on the counter. The first year when I still bought 2 of things at the grocery store without thinking. In that first year, my family called me 11 times total. I counted. Apparently, grief can turn a man into someone who keeps records of being forgotten. 11 calls in 12 months, spread across 4 people. Hannah called 3 times. Rachel called twice. Brooke called 4 times, and 2 of those were accidents where she clearly had not meant to call me. Austin called twice, and one of those calls was to ask if I still had his camping gear from 2019. I'm not exaggerating. I kept the note in my phone. I did not know why at the time. Maybe some part of me already knew that one day I would need proof, even if only for myself. Then came year 2. I still cooked. I still called. I want that understood clearly. I did not simply sit in silence and wait for people to fail me. I tried. I invited them. I reached out. I even drove to Brooke's house twice without being invited just to see the grandkids and to have somewhere to go on a Saturday afternoon. One time I sat in her driveway for 10 minutes before getting out of the car because I felt embarrassed. Imagine that. A man in his 60s, embarrassed to knock on his own daughter's door. When Brooke opened it, she looked surprised. Not happy surprised, more like she had just remembered I existed. Dad, we were just heading out, she said. They were not heading out. I could see Morgan in the living room wearing sweatpants with the remote in his hand. I said, That's okay. I was just nearby. I lived 45 minutes away. I drove home, sat in the kitchen, and ate pot roast alone. I watched some show I did not care about and went to bed at 9. Year 2 became year 3. Year 3 became year 4. I kept cooking. I kept calling. And if I am being honest, I became a man waiting for his family to remember he was still alive. On holidays, I set the table for more people than came. On birthdays, I made calls that went to voicemail. Every Sunday, I made food and then started freezing most of it because one man cannot eat like a family of 6. My freezer became a storage place for invitations nobody answered. During that time, I saw a therapist. Her name was Dr. Calloway. She told me I needed boundaries. She told me I had to communicate my needs clearly. I invite them every week, I told her. I call, I drive over, I am the one doing all of it. She asked, Have you told them directly how lonely you feel? So I tried. Around year 5, I sat Hannah down and said, Hannah, I need you to know I am struggling. I am lonely. I miss Jennifer and I miss my family. I feel invisible. She looked at me with warm, sincere, completely useless sympathy. Oh, James, she said, you know we love you. We are just all so busy. You live 40 minutes away, I said. I know, she said. I know. We will do better. They did not do better. I told Rachel the same thing one afternoon on the phone. Rach, I need to say something. I feel like I am putting in all the effort and I do not know what I am doing wrong. She cut me off. James, I hear you and I love you, but you have to stop being so sensitive. We have lives. Stop being so sensitive. We have lives. I remember sitting there with the phone in my hand, thinking about Jennifer's Italy board, thinking about how she used to reach across the car and rest her hand on my knee without saying a word, just letting me know she was there. I thought about how she would have known what to do. Jennifer always knew what to do. But she was gone, and I was sitting alone while my sister told me I was too sensitive. I hung up and stayed at the kitchen table for a long time. I did not realize it then, but something inside me had started to close. Year 7 was when Austin asked me for money. $26,000. He had gotten himself into trouble with some business idea. The details do not really matter. What matters is that he called me, actually called. "Dad, I need your help," he said. "I know I have not been great at keeping in touch, but you have always been there for me, and I am in a really bad spot." He needed $26,000 within 2 weeks. And here is what tells you the kind of man I still was at that point. I gave it to him, every dollar. Because he was my son, because I loved him, because Jennifer would have wanted me to help him, and because, even after 7 years, I still believed that maybe this would bring him back to me. Maybe this would remind him that I was his father. Maybe this would open something in our family again. To be fair, Austin paid me back. It took 2 years in regular payments, but he returned all $26,000. And during those 2 years, the calls were steady. He came to dinner. He remembered my birthday, twice. Then the final payment cleared, and the phone went quiet again. I'm not saying he planned it that way. I'm saying the result was the same. Year 8 passed. Then year 9, I turned 67 on a Sunday. I cooked my own birthday dinner and called my children and my sisters. Nobody came. Brooke sent a card, Hannah texted. Rachel called for 4 minutes and spent half of it complaining about her neighbor's fence. Austin sent a birthday cake gif. I sat at the table with 6 place settings. Old habits. Or maybe hope. Hope has always been the most embarrassing thing about me. I ate pot roast alone on my 67th birthday and thought, Jennifer, what am I supposed to do now? Of course she did not answer. She had been gone 10 years by then. The dead do not answer anymore. Still, I waited in that quiet way people wait when they already know the truth but are not ready to accept it. Then I finished my dinner. I washed the dishes. And over the next several weeks, a decision formed slowly inside me. I did not tell anyone. That was the first rule. I called a realtor from 3 towns over, not anyone local, and had the house assessed. Jennifer's house. Our house. The house where we had raised Brooke and Austin. The house where I had hosted 10 years of Sunday dinners no one came to. The house with a freezer full of things I had cooked for people who were too busy. It was valued at $430,000. List it, I said. The realtor looked at me carefully, like people look at someone they think may be making a decision out of pain. Do you want to take some time to think about it? She asked. I have had 10 years, I told her. List it. The house sold in 3 weeks. Cash offer. The buyers were a young couple in their 30s. They had a dog and a baby on the way. They wanted a quick closing. That worked for me. While the house was in escrow, I handled the rest. I had a financial advisor back then. I moved my retirement money into accounts that were less convenient to track, not because I was hiding assets. I was not doing anything illegal. I simply did not want to be easy to find. After 10 years of being ignored, I had learned something. If people have to make even a little effort to reach you, most of them will not bother. I canceled my cell number and got a new one. I did not give it to anyone. I closed my social media accounts too. Yes, I know. A man in his late 60s with social media. Jennifer had set them up, and I had kept them because shutting them down felt like losing another little piece of her, but I shut them down. I found an apartment, not in my city, not near Hannah, Rachel, Brooke, or Austin. A small 2-bedroom place in a town 3 hours away, near a lake. The kind of place people go when they want quiet. The kind of place where other people understand that desire and do not ask too many questions. I packed what mattered. Which, as it turns out, was not much. Jennifer's photographs, her grandmother's quilt, the cast-iron skillet that had belonged to her family long before I met her, my books, My clothes. That was almost everything. I left the furniture. I left the Sunday table with the 6-place settings. I left the food. On my last day in the house, I walked through every room. I stood in the kitchen the longest. Then I locked the door, left the key in an envelope for the realtor, and drove away. No note. The town was called Millhaven. I did not choose it because of the name, but the name fit. It sounded like a place where something could be ground down and made into something else. Millhaven sat on the edge of a lake large enough to get lost in, but small enough that people still recognized each other at the grocery store. I knew no one. That was the point. I rented the apartment. I unpacked my books. I hung Jennifer's photographs. I put the cast iron skillet on the stove where it belonged. The first night, I slept 11 hours. If you have ever spent years waking up at 3 in the morning inside a house packed with memories, then you understand what a miracle that was. The first week felt strange. I kept reaching for my old phone. I kept almost calling people who never called back. Habits do not disappear just because you decide they should. For 10 years, I had trained myself to wait. To hope. To turn toward people who had already turned away, but I did not call. Instead, I walked. Mostly around the lake. Millhaven had a trail that circled the whole thing. 6.5 miles if you did the entire loop. So I started doing the entire loop every morning. Just me, the water, and the geese yelling at each other like rude neighbors. I found it comforting, and I cooked. Of course I cooked. Only now I cooked for one. That may sound sad. Maybe it was a little, but there was something clean about it too. I made exactly what I wanted. I ate when I wanted. I did not divide half the meal into containers for people who would never come pick them up. I found a small bookstore run by a man whose name I will not use. He had strong opinions about Cormac McCarthy, and annoyingly he was right about most of them. I started going every Tuesday morning. We argued about books. For a while, that was the best part of my week. A month passed. Then 6 weeks. Eventually Hannah called my old number and heard it had been disconnected. I know this because Brooke later tried the landline at the house, but I had canceled that too. Then she called Rachel, then Austin. And at some point, all 4 of them compared notes and realized nobody had actually spoken to me in a while. None of them could say exactly how long. That part is important. Brooke was the first one to do something real. I will give her that. She drove to my old house and found strangers living there. A young woman answered the door with a baby on her hip. Brooke stood there for what must have felt like a very long time before saying, "I'm sorry. My father used to live here." The woman told her they had bought the house about 6 weeks earlier. Then Brooke called Austin. Austin called Rachel. Rachel called Hannah. From what I learned later, they had a long, panicked conversation. I imagine each of them was quietly asking themselves the same question. When did I last actually talk to him? The answers were not good. Austin tried to file a missing person report. The police would not take it the way he wanted. I was a 67-year-old man. There was no evidence of a crime. I had sold my house, closed accounts, and left by choice. "He is not missing," an officer apparently told him. He left. Austin did not like that answer. Hannah hired someone to find me. A private investigator type, though I later found out he was really more of a general finder of people and things. It took him around 3 months. I was not deeply hidden. I used my real name on my lease, my real name at the library, and my real name at the small gym near the lake. I had simply not told my family where I was. There is a difference, and it turned out to be a bigger difference than I expected. He found me in the spring, about 8 months after I left. I came back from my morning walk and saw a car I did not recognize parked outside my building. Brooke was sitting on the steps. She had either been crying already or was very close to it. Her face was at that stage where crying has already built the house and is just waiting to move in. "Dad," she said. "Brooke," I said. "We did not know where you were. I thought about 11 calls in a year. I thought about the birthday dinner. I thought about we have lives, and you are too sensitive, and rain check, and a birthday cake gif." "I know," I said. That was sort of the point. Then she cried. "How could you do this?" she asked. "We were terrified. We thought something happened to you." Austin has barely slept. I sat down on the step beside her. I did not put my arm around her. I wanted to. She was my daughter and she was crying. But some moments should not be made softer than they are. "Brooke," I said, "when is my birthday?" She blinked. "What?" "My birthday. What date is it?" "Dad, that is not—" "What date?" She paused. "September 12th, the 19th, I said. "September 19th, same birthday for 67 years. She wiped her face and said nothing. "How many times did you call me last year?" I asked. "Dad?" "I am not asking to hurt you. I am asking because I know the answer." I counted. Another pause. "I do not know," she said quietly. "4, I said. "And 2 of them were accidental." The lake behind us was quiet. Somewhere in the distance, geese made noise like they had strong opinions about all of this. "I kept cooking," I said. "Every Sunday for 10 years. I set the table. I made food. I called. I even drove to your house and sat in your driveway because I was embarrassed to knock on my own daughter's door without being invited." Brooke sat very still. I told Hannah I was lonely. I told Rachel I was struggling. I gave Austin $26,000 and watched him come around only until the money was paid back. Then he disappeared again. I took a breath. "Your mother died and all of you moved on. I understand that life moves. I am not a child, but I did not vanish. I was right there, cooking pot roast, answering when you called, waiting, and you all just stopped calling." "Dad," she said, "I'm sorry." "I know you are," I said. "Right now you are sorry because I am not where you expected me to be." I said it gently. But I still said it. She looked at me for a long moment. She had Jennifer's eyes. All of my children did, in one way or another. That was the easiest and hardest thing about looking at them. "So what now?" she asked. "Now I live here," I said. "This is where I live." "You are not coming back?" "Back to what, Brooke?" She had no answer. Neither did I. So I went inside, made coffee for one, and let her drive home. After that, they all came eventually. Of course they did. People often do that. They ignore something while it is available, then panic the second it is no longer there. Hannah came 2 weeks after Brooke. I saw her white SUV from my window and watched her sit in the parking lot for a while, gathering the nerve to come up. When she rang the buzzer, I let it ring 3 times before answering. Then I let her in. I am not a monster. She sat at my kitchen table and looked around. The photographs, the quilt, the skillet on the stove. She seemed to expect to find me broken, surrounded by despair. Instead, she found a clean kitchen, fresh coffee, and a man who had slept 8 hours the night before. "You seem—" she started. "Fine," I said. "I seem fine. James, you need to understand how scared we were." I put my mug down. "Hannah, how many times did you call me last year?" She stared at me. "What?" She sat at my kitchen table and looked around. The photographs, the quilt, the skillet on the stove. She seemed to expect to find me broken, surrounded by despair. Instead, she found a clean kitchen, fresh coffee, and a man who had slept 8 hours the night before. "You seem—" she started. "Fine," I said. "I seem fine. James, you need to understand how scared we were." I put my mug down. "Hannah, how many times did you call me last year?" She stared at me. "What?" "Busy?" I said. "I know. You were busy for 10 years, Hannah. Busy every Sunday I called. Busy after I told you I was lonely. Busy after you promised you would do better and then did not." The kitchen went quiet. "I'm sorry," she said. And she meant it. Hannah has never been a dishonest person. She was truly sorry. It just did not reach me the way it would have years earlier. "I know," I said. "Are you going to forgive us?" I looked at her, then at the photograph of Jennifer behind her. I thought about the 11 calls. I thought about the birthday dinner. 6 plates on the table and pot roast going cold in an empty house. "No," I said. Hannah stared at me. "No, no." "James, we are your family." "You were," I said. I picked up my mug. You had 10 years to be my family. 10 years of Sundays, birthdays, holidays, and phone calls. 10 years with me in the same house, waiting, and you were busy. She started crying. I handed her a napkin because I am not cruel. But I did not take it back. I love you, I said. I will always love you. But love is not the same thing as access. You do not get to ignore a person for a decade, then show up crying and expect forgiveness like it is a package waiting at the counter. So that is it? She asked. You are done with us? I did not end anything, Hannah. I just stopped pretending something was alive when you had already let it die. She left about an hour later. According to Brooke, she cried the whole drive home. I know because Brooke called me that evening. Not by accident, not on speaker, she actually called. Dad, Hannah's really upset, she said. I know. What did you say to her? The truth. A pause. Are you going to talk to any of us again? Brooke, you are talking to me right now. You know what I mean? I did know. She meant, are you going to let us back in? Are you going to soften eventually? Is this a dramatic phase? Is there a road back to Sunday dinners and Christmas mornings and the version of Dad who kept cooking for people who never showed up? I am not angry, I told her. I need you to understand that. I am not sitting here stewing. I am not plotting revenge. I am genuinely fine. That is almost scarier, she said softly. Yes, I said. I know, Rachel called after that. I answered mostly because I was curious. James, she said, I think you are being incredibly selfish. I laughed, a real laugh. Rachel, I said, that might be the most Rachel thing you have ever said to me. I am serious. We are your family. You cannot just erase us because you are upset? I am not upset? You clearly are. Rachel, 2 years after Jennifer died, I called you and told you I was struggling. You told me I needed to stop being so sensitive. You said all of you had lives. Do you remember? Silence. Finally, quieter, she said, I remember. I took your advice, I said. I stopped being sensitive about it. I stopped feeling things about it. Then I left. So, in a way, you helped. That is not fair, she said. No, I said, it really is not. I let the silence sit there for a moment. Then I said, goodbye, Rachel, and I meant it in the full sense. Then I hung up. Austin came last. Brooke warned me he was coming, and honestly, Austin has never done anything quietly in his life, so I would have known anyway. He drove 3 hours on a Sunday and stood at my door holding a bag with my camping gear from 2019. His eyes were red. He looked like a man who had spent the night rehearsing and still had no idea what to say. I looked at him for a long moment. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles, completely wrecked. A small, cold part of me thought, good, I'm not proud of that. I am also not going to pretend it was not there. Dad, he said. Austin. I brought your camping gear. I see that. Can I come in? I let him in. He put the bag down and stood in my kitchen, looking at Jennifer's photographs. I watched something move across his face, and I recognized it because I had felt it myself. It was the pain of realizing what you had only after you stopped paying attention to it. Dad, I know I do not have the right to ask you for anything, he began. That is correct. And I know sorry is not enough. Also correct. But I need you to know. His voice cracked, but he kept going. I missed Mom. Every time I looked at you, I saw her. I could not handle it, so I stopped looking. And I know that is not an excuse. I know it is a terrible reason. But I kept not calling because calling meant facing what we lost. I was not ready. Then months passed, and then more months, and I kept telling myself I would fix it later. But later never came. Dad, I swear I did not understand how bad it was until you were gone and there was a stranger living in our house. He was crying by then. Austin had not cried in front of me since Jennifer's funeral. And here is the thing about being a father. It does not stop hurting to watch your child suffer, not when he is grown, not when he deserves the pain. Not even when the pain is partly yours too. Some part of you still wants to fix it. Some part of you still reaches for the old version of yourself, the one who could make things better. I let that part speak for a moment. Sit down, I said. I will make coffee. He sat. I made coffee and placed a mug in front of him. Then I sat across from my son and looked at him the way you look at someone when a decision is already forming. I believe you, I said. I'd believe all of it. You were scared. You ran from the grief. You kept telling yourself tomorrow, and tomorrow turned into 10 years. You did not fully understand what you were doing until it was done. I believe you. His face changed. Hope came into it. And it does not change anything? I said. The hope left him almost instantly. Dad? Austin, I gave you $26,000. I gave it to you because you are my son and I loved you. I truly thought it might bring us back together. And it did, for exactly as long as you owed me money. The day the debt was paid, you disappeared again? Do you think I did not notice? Do you think I did not count those days too? He said nothing. I spent 10 years making myself available to 4 people who treated my availability like a guarantee. Like I would always be there. Like the pot roast would always be on the stove, the phone would always be answered, and Dad would always be waiting in that house with 6 plates on the table. I stood and walked to the window. The lake was flat and silver in the morning light. I am not angry at you, I said. I need you to really hear that. I am not angry. Anger would mean I am still invested in what you do next. I am not. I moved on. The way all of you moved on after your mother died. Turns out, once you commit to it, moving on is possible. He sat with that for a long time. The coffee steamed between us. So there is nothing? He asked finally. No way back? There is a way forward, I said. But forward looks like 2 people with a shared past who send Christmas cards and maybe have dinner once a year in a neutral place. It does not look like Sunday pot roast, family holidays, or a father waiting by the phone. That version of me is retired. That is not a father, Austin said. That is a stranger. Yes, I said. It is. Welcome to how I felt for 10 years. He left before noon. He did not take the camping gear. I put it in the storage closet, and I have not thought about it much since. Here is what I want you to understand about what I did. It was not an accident. It was not a breakdown. It was not an old man losing touch with reality or making one desperate attempt to get attention. I was calm, I was clear, I knew exactly what I was doing. I gave them 10 years. 10 years of showing them I was still there. 10 years of reaching toward people who were always a little too busy, a little too far, a little too wrapped up in their own lives to reach back. I gave them warnings. I told them I was lonely, I told them I was struggling, and when nothing changed, I stopped waiting to be remembered. I did not call. A week later, Austin sent a message asking if I wanted to come over for New Year's. I stared at the words until the screen went dark. Then I turned the phone over and made soup. That sounds colder than it felt. The truth is, it hurt. Of course it hurt. I'm not made of stone. I am a man who spent most of his life believing that family was the place you return to, even after the worst days. But after a while, returning to people who keep leaving you becomes its own kind of madness. So I stopped. Not forever, maybe. I do not make promises like that anymore. But for now, I answer when I want to answer. I visit when I want to visit. I do not explain myself twice. I do not cook for 6 people unless 6 people are actually standing in my kitchen. Brooke calls more now. Sometimes I pick up. Sometimes I let it ring and call back the next day. She is learning what waiting feels like, and I do not say that with joy. I say it because some lessons cannot be handed over gently. Some things only become real when they finally touch you. Austin writes every few weeks, not long messages. Mostly simple things. A photo of a trail he walked. A question about a recipe. Once just, I thought about Mom today. I answered that one. I do too, I wrote. Hannah still apologizes too much. Rachel does not apologize enough. That is exactly who they have always been. And me? I live in Millhaven. I walk around the lake most mornings. I buy books on Tuesdays. I cook in Jennifer's cast iron skillet. Sometimes I make too much food out of habit, and when I do, I bring a container to the older man downstairs who pretends not to be grateful and always returns it washed. On Sundays, I still make pot roast sometimes. But I do not set 6 places anymore. 1 plate is enough. Sometimes, too, if someone has earned the chair, I still miss Jennifer every day, not in the same sharp way as before. More like a light left on in another room. You know it is there. You can feel it through the wall, but you stop standing in the doorway begging the past to answer. And I miss my family too. That is the part nobody tells you. You can leave and still miss them. You can forgive parts of it and still not go back. You can love people and still decide that they no longer get the best seat at your table. The house is gone now. Someone else lives there. Some young couple with a baby and a dog. Maybe they will fill those rooms properly. Maybe that kitchen will hear laughter again. I hope it does. I really do. But that life is not mine anymore. Mine is smaller now, quieter, cleaner. And there are mornings when I sit by the lake with coffee in my hand and feel the strange peace of not waiting for anyone. It is not happiness the way people imagine happiness. It is not a family running through the door, crying, apologizing, promising to make everything right. Life rarely gives you an ending that neat. What it gave me was a key to a small apartment, a phone that does not ring unless I allow it to matter, and the knowledge that disappearing was not the same as being lost. They forgot me for 10 years. So I vanished. And when they finally found me, I was not where they left me. That was the whole point.